and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from Germany. Today is, Saturday the 26th of May 2018. I'm so glad you're joining me today to talk about some knitting. If you haven't watched before, I really hope that you'll enjoy this podcast, and if you're coming back, thank you ever so much. I really appreciate it. I'm recording today on a Saturday night, which was not my original plan, but as it just turned out, Kai is out right now and I had some spare time and I've been thinking and dreaming and doing all the knitting things today anyways, so I thought I might as well just use that time frame and record a podcast a day early, and that way maybe you can find the time to watch it on the weekend. So I said last week that I would finally take the time to reintroduce myself to those of you who haven't been watching for what's been almost 3 years now, which is crazy. So like I said, very briefly, my name is Julia. I live in Germany. I live down in Munich, which is in the south of Germany, with my lovely boyfriend Kai. He is a very knitworthy boyfriend, I must say, and he doesn't ever make an appearance on the podcast, but I think those of you who've been watching for a while know the kind of yarn that he likes, and he very much likes the socks, which we'll talk about more later. Anyways, it's just the two of us. We have a really nice apartment down here, which we love. Apartment hunting in Munich is very difficult, and we're really lucky to have found one pretty much immediately back 2 years ago when we moved here. Anyways, I work full-time, both of us do, not in the fiber industry, so this is just my hobby. I learned how to knit and how to crochet as a child, and as so many people do, then I forgot about it, and then at some point I really wanted to crochet some hats, because that seemed to be in style maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. So I did that, and then I got bored of that very quickly and decided, actually on a trip in Thailand. I don't know how I got that idea, but I decided when I come back, I really want to knit socks. So I came back from that trip eventually and asked my grandma to teach me how to knit socks. And then I knit a lot of socks, and I still do. Sock knitting is still an obsession of mine, but eventually moved on to all kinds of other knitwear as well. The way I learned to knit is, I think, quite different to a lot of people who learn to knit now through Ravelry and YouTube tutorials. I learned more like the traditional knitting, and for example, when I started knitting my first garments, I didn't use patterns, but instead I knit them the way my grandma taught me, which is to knit a gauge swatch, do the math, and then basically just kind of design your own sweater as you go. Of course, all like bottom up, with pieces and seaming, so like more the traditional way. And then eventually, of course, I caught wind of the podcasting world, the Ravelry world, and now I very much like actually using design, like written patterns, and it makes life much easier. I also now prefer knitting, for example, garments top down, raglan style, seamless things. So my knitting has definitely changed. But yeah, so I mainly knit. I still love knitting socks, but I am at a point where at the moment I knit a lot of garments. I basically knit everything. I also spin. I got my spinning wheel over 2 years ago now. 2.5 years ago, and absolutely love it, but I don't really spend that much time spinning at the moment because knitting is my first love and I don't have that much time to knit. What else? I have also published a couple of patterns on Ravelry. So very recently I published my first sock pattern, which is the Couch and Crackers socks, and I'm really excited about that. So thank you to everyone who bought that. I will be, of course, linking both my design page and our Ravelry group underneath this video. So yeah, I think that is enough about me. That kind of sounded like an advertisement, which really wasn't the idea. I just wanted to catch you guys up because I kind of tend to get the same questions all over again. So there we are. And talking about the sock pattern, thank you once again to everyone who's been supporting me with that. And I mentioned last week that we have a knit along for that as well, which is the Couch and Crackers sock knit along. So if you want to join in, please feel free to just join in the Ravelry group, which of course will be linked underneath this video. This knit along is running until the end of June, but it will be super relaxed. So there is one thread that you can use for both chattering and sharing finished objects. Just use one thread for everything. And that means that it is a quite short time frame, so you don't have to finish to be eligible for prizes. You can just start and see how you go. And to me personally, it doesn't really matter if you finish on time for the deadline or not. But of course, you can also set yourself that goal just depending on how fast you knit and what else is going on in your life. As for all my knit-alongs, double dipping is always welcome. We also have a second knit-along that might be quite easy to double dip with this one, which is the Summer Stash Down. So for that, the idea is to just use lots of your stash rather than collect it. I'm personally just counting how many skeins I use until the end of August. And it's just an excuse to bang out all the projects. You can knit or crochet whatever you want. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun to cheer each other on. So again, it's not super strict. Just have fun with your stash, and that is that. So that pretty much explained everything that's going on in the group at the moment. Both winners from the sock blankathon have contacted me, which was great. So one package is already sent out and the other one is ready to be just taken to the post office whenever I find the time to do so. So with that, I think we will just jump right into finished objects, but not before I have some coffee. And yes, it is like 6:30 at night, but I don't care. It was actually really funny last night. This is a total tangent, but of course I was knitting last night and I cast on a new sweater, which I'll talk more about later. And then I was going to go to bed and then I didn't, and then I made mistakes, and then I stayed up until like 2 o'clock, which I rarely ever do. And then this morning somehow Kai and we were up at 7 o'clock, which was crazy. So we actually went yarn shopping, so that totally made it worth it. So now I'm just drinking lots of coffee to get through the day. So yeah, finished objects. I have one finished object and I'm so excited about it. I am not wearing it today because as much as I love wearing sweaters on the podcast, I sometimes feel like it's not that good to show you what I'm talking about. But the sweater that I have finished, and it has some ends apparently dangling. I thought I had them all woven in and clipped, but apparently not. This is my finished Winterfjell sweater, which is of course a pattern by Ellie of Skein Knits. This is her first colorwork garment that she released, and I absolutely loved it. Love knitting it. I love the finished result. I will talk you through the modifications that I've made, because I've made a couple. In terms of the fit, I will show you this worn at some point, because the fit is not 100%, I must say. It is perfect in terms of the sleeve length and the body length, which I modified, but I don't know if you can see here the yoke. For me, like, the increases are quite narrow, if that makes any sense. So for me, the fit around the shoulders is a little bit too tight, even though my bust measurements and everything is on point. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. It may just be like a body type sort of thing. So it doesn't fit 100% great around the top. So if I were to knit this again, I would probably go up at least one size and just make it more oversized, because then it's just a lot more forgiving. But I wanted this to be more fitting than my usual garments. Yeah, so I'm about 85% happy with that. But I just love the look of this, so I don't really care. So this is, like I said, the Blåfjell sweater. I used 3mm and 3.25mm needles for the colorwork. And the first modification that I did is I knit the ribbing as you're supposed to, but then it was really like tight around my neck and really far up. So what I've actually done is I've just tacked it down, so it's basically like a double rib now, which I really quite like. it now fits perfectly around my neck, and it gives it a little bit more stability, which I do really like. I also did a couple less short rows. I did a couple, but not as many as you're supposed to. But that worked out really well, in case you're interested how that looks. What else did I modify? First of all, I did my own decreases on the body, which turned out really, really, really well. I feel like I'm definitely getting better at that. And I also did 2 sets of kind of like darts at the back of the garment to bring it in a little bit, and that worked out really well. In terms of other modifications, I did a split hem, and the hem is much shorter in the front and then longer in the back, which is a look that I really like. I hadn't done that before in the past, but I really like how it turned out, so I think I'm going to do this more often. I think it gives it a more, slightly more modern look, and I really, really like it. What else? I was going to do 3/4 length sleeve, but I ended up going with full length sleeves. Again, I kind of did my own numbers for that, and they still ended up quite tight, even though they are less tight than what the pattern says. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but maybe it's just my gauge. And yeah, that is pretty much it. So in terms of the overall look, I think this is my favorite color work sweater that I've ever knit. Like, it looks really difficult in terms of the color work, but it's actually quite easy. And yeah, so I love this design. I will definitely knit it again and maybe try to improve the fit. And yeah, so that is that. And the yarn that I used for this is Drops Flora, which is a very sort of woolly, still yet commercial and soft yarn. Lots of people have been asking me, is this scratchy? And I find it impossible to say yes or no to that, because it's such a subjective thing to say. If you compare this to a superwash merino nylon blend, this is not that soft. But then if you compare it to like a proper sort of woolen yarn, such as Jameson & Smith or Finulgarn or Holzgarn, this is definitely much softer, and it's also, I think, quite a lot more drapey. So personally, I think it is quite soft, but I really can't tell you if this is going to be scratchy for you. I personally really like it. And because I keep talking about it and people seem to be very, very interested, I thought I'd talk about the yarn some more. So I didn't bring any to show you. Actually, I do. I have another sweater started in the same yarn, which comes in handy. So this is the yarn that I'm talking about. It is a yarn by Drops. It's a fingering weight yarn. It's a alpaca and wool blend. Non-superwash, I believe. And what was really interesting is this is my second sweater knit out of this yarn. So I've brought both of these sweaters out to show you, so you can maybe contrast and compare. So first of all, the biggest difference is that I knit this sweater on a gauge of 28 stitches per 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So I got 28 stitches with a 3mm needle in stockinette, whereas this sweater was knit on 3.5mm, and my gauge for this is 22 stitches. So that's 6 stitches difference, which I think is quite a lot. And both actually are really drapey, so even with a tighter gauge, I think I like both gauges for this yarn. I can't even tell you. I tend to like loose gauges in general, but I really do like both of these. But obviously this one I have just finished. But this is the Breathing Space sweater by Vera Välimäki. Like I said, knit in the same yarn, and you guys, I've worn this a ton. And I'm going to try to show you. This yarn is still, I think it looks absolutely perfect. Like this yarn, if you care for it properly, aka hand wash it, I think it holds up incredibly well. This is one of my most worn sweaters. And it is so soft, it is so drapey. I think it's softened up a little bit just over time and with wearing it and washing it. And I think it still pretty much looks like new and not like a sweater that I finished 2 years ago. So I just thought that was really, really interesting, and I'm really, really happy knitting sweaters in this yarn. I have a ton of this yarn in my stash by now, and yeah, I just thought you might be interested in this. So like I said, this is obviously much wider and much looser, and that's also, like, if you compare the fit of these two, you can already tell that this one, in terms of the shoulder width, is much tighter than this one is, and this one fits me perfectly. So yeah, a little excursion on Drops Flora here. I'm not sponsored or anything, I just really like this yarn, and I just wanted to share it, and I will share it some more because I cast on a new sweater with it as well. Maybe I should just talk about that straight away now as well, because I'm already on topic. So of course I wanted to cast on another color work sweater, and I decided to knit another one out of this yarn, which was perfect because I didn't have to do a gauge swatch. Because I was touring between what needle size to use, and my favorite needle size is still 3.5 millimeters for fingering weight yarn. And then I just measured the sweater and I hit gauge instantly. So if you always use the same yarn, you don't need to gauge swatch. But then it might be kind of boring. But anyways, and the sweater that I have cast on will probably not surprise you. I've been wanting to knit this ever since I saw pictures of the test knit pop up on Instagram. And that is the Sipila? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Sipila sweater by Caitlin Hunter of Boyland Knitworks. She's the designer of really, really popular patterns like the Birkin sweater, the Sunset Highway sweater, which I knit, the Zweig sweater. There are a lot of really popular patterns of hers at the moment. And I cast this on yesterday. I cast it on last night and have been obsessed with this. It's kind of hard to show because obviously I'm not that far into it, but it's a top-down color work sweater, and this is where I am. So I think about halfway through the color work yoke, and I am really, really, really enjoying this. So I'll talk about my failures with this pattern in a second, but first of all, like I said, I'm using Drops Flora. The colors I'm using is color 5, which is this really pretty apricot, and then color number 5, which is just a mild dark gray. I am using 3.5 millimeter needles for this, so I decided to go with the looser gauge because I do really like it, and this is sort of like an oversized sweater. You're supposed to have something like 4 to 6 inches of positive ease on the bust, which was a little bit too much for me personally, so I went with the size that I think will give me like 2 or 3 inches of positive ease, and I think that'll be perfect. In terms of casting this on, this is such an easy pattern, and because it is so easy, I just didn't read it properly. So first of all, you start with a rolled sort of neckline. And I did that, and then I changed the needle sizes, and then I did my short rows, and I messed them up. It was wrap and turn short rows, which I've done before plenty of times, but they just didn't come out very nicely. So I ripped them out, and I learned a new technique, which is the short row technique of the German short rows. I've never done German short rows before, and oh my gosh, I never want to do anything else anymore because German short rows are so much easier and they look so much nicer. So I found a tutorial which I will link in my project page for this if you're interested, but I did the German short rows after having ripped back already. Once I was done with that, I was just so happy to be finally done. I did a couple of rows and then started my color work. And I finished my first round of the color work, and it didn't really work out in terms of the stitch count, and I read back on it and I realized I completely forgot an increase row, like a really big increase row that you should have done before the short rows. So at that point I was just really, really pissed off. This was all last night. And I really didn't want to rip out the short rows, the entire short row section a second time. I just couldn't face it. So I kind of went back and forth and then decided to just do the increase row after the short rows and just see how it goes. So that's what I did last night, and then I just started the color work and kind of thought, well, I'll look at it tomorrow and see if I have to rip this entire thing out. And if I do, I probably won't knit it again because I was just so sick of it at that point. But I think it's going to be just fine, to be honest. Like, of course, you can see that the increases aren't exactly maybe as perfect as they would be if you had done them at the right point. But you guys, it's an oversized sweater and I think it's going to be just fine. And in terms of the fit, for me personally, I think it might not actually be such a bad idea anyways. So I think this should be fine. I'm going to try it on once I finish the yoke and split fold the sleeves, but I'm not really that worried anymore. But I was just so frustrated at myself because the pattern is so easy. It is so very, very clear, and I just thought because it was so easy I didn't have to read properly. I was just knitting it while doing all sorts of different things at the same time. And yeah, definitely too overconfident there. But anyways, now I'm on track and really, really loving it. Once again, really loving this yarn for color work. And yeah, can't wait to complete the yoke. I think it's going to be really, really pretty. So that is my newest cast on. And besides that, of course, I have a couple of socks to show you. Once again, I have been working on my fading point, but it's just the same thing that I've already shown you a million times, so I just don't want to keep showing you the same thing. But I've brought out my socks to show you. First of all, these are some of my summer stash down socks that I'm using yarn that I got for my birthday last year. And I have finished the first sock since I last talked to you. This is yarn from She Bought Garne, who's of course Nadine, a German indie dyer, in the Hot Kisses colorway, and this is on their sparkly base. It's with silver stellina and it is just so beautiful. I really, really love it. So I have finished the first sock, and just before recording this I cast on the cuff for the second sock, and I think I'm pretty much ready to just start the leg now, and then it'll be a very plain vanilla sock. So that is my first sock project. My second sock project, again, you've seen this before. These are my West Yorkshire Spinners socks. So I got this yarn for my birthday this year. This is my first time knitting with West Yorkshire Spinners. This is their Bird Collection sock yarn in the Kingfisher colorway, I believe. I'm just knitting plain vanilla socks because the pattern is self-patterning and I just think that looks nicest in a plain stockinette sock. And as you can see, I've knit a quite long leg and I am ready to start the heel. I just need to sit down and actually knit the heel, and then that'll be that. So nothing super exciting to write home about, but I just really love socks, and honestly I just want to cast on all the things today and in general all the time. But yeah, I really, really like these, and I'm definitely enjoying this yarn as well. So those are my current sock whips that are on the needles. Like I said, I want to cast on a million more, but today I promised Kai that the next pair of socks that I'm going to cast on are going to be for him. So that's going to happen probably quite soon. I kind of want to get a little bit further on my glitter socks, and then I always feel like when I have a substantial amount of the second sock done, then I can just cast on all the new things, because then it's not really so much work anymore to finish anything. So yeah, you guys, so that is it for for works in progress. And now I thought I wasn't going to have any yarn to show you, but instead I have a mountain of yarn next to me. So this is going to turn into quite a big haul video, so if you're not interested in that, that is 100% fine by me. In that case, I will just see you next week, but if you do want to stick around, be ready for quite a bit of yarn shame, because you guys went a little bit nuts. So first of all, there was one thing that I was expecting, and that's one thing I've been talking about for weeks and weeks. Already before my birthday, I had this plan that with my birthday money, I would treat myself to some yarn to knit the Shu Sui shrug by Sosu Knits, who is Susanne Sommer. It's a kind of, it starts out as a shawl, but then turns into some kind of cardigan. It's all brioche, and it's just a really, really fun pattern. I've seen it worn a couple of times at yarn festivals, and I just really want one. So this was something I've been planning for a while, and I finally found the perfect yarn about 2 weeks ago on a sale, and that yarn is one that I've been wanting to use for a garment for quite a long time, and that is Malabrigo sock. I have one skein of Malabrigo sock in my stash that I've picked up at some point, and I always just kind of dreamt of having a sweater quantity of this yarn because it feels like a really nice luxurious yarn to use for a sweater. So I needed two skeins of two colors to knit my Chaussure Shrek, which, like I said, is a brioche pattern, so you kind of need two contrasting colors. And Lanard, which is a German reseller, they had a sale, so I just jumped the gun and I picked my colors, and you guys, aren't these just so very much me? This is coming across very red. It's actually it's actually a pink color. I'm not sure why it's coming across so red. It's definitely sort of like a corally pink, but it's not a red. So anyways, I got two skeins of each color. This beautiful gray one is called Pearl, and I think this may be like the perfect tonal gray. This is just stunning. I kind of want to knit 5 garments just out of this. And then the pink one is called Light of Love. And this is also a very beautiful tonal yarn. I will say that the two skeins I got of this Light of Love are quite different, which of course is to be expected. And normally on a hand-dyed yarn sweater, I would alternate skeins. But you guys, this is going to be brioche, so I'll have 2 skeins attached anyways, and there's no way I'm alternating and using 4 skeins of yarn at the same time for a cardigan. That's just going to drive me nuts. And to be honest, this is not like the perfect sort of normal sweater. This is going to be a pretty crazy design anyways. So I don't think I'm going to alternate skeins. Maybe I'll just alternate a little bit before like when I'm close to being finished with the first skein. But besides that, that's just not going to happen, and I think I can totally live with that. So yeah, I'm so excited about these. Now I've ruined the skein. But yeah, I squealed when this arrived today, and I really can't wait to knit the sweater. I rarely buy yarn so specific for a pattern, and it's making me really excited. So that is my one purchase that was expected, and where I'm just going to put yarn everywhere. And then what happened from not buying any yarn, right? Remember my summer stash down? The idea of the summer stash down is not to not buy any yarn, but of course I feel like I'm doing really good with getting yarn out of my stash, but then I'm doing really badly at not buying new things. So last night we went out for dinner, and kind of thinking about what we were going to do this weekend, and I said, well, I'd really like to go back to the Wollmeise store. So Wollmeise is about maybe 15 minutes drive from where we are in Munich, because we are in the south of Munich and they are north of Munich. And it just kind of popped into my head. I've only been there once, which was like in February last year, so over a year ago. So I kind of think like going once a year and going crazy is okay. And then as it turned out, I found out that the big Wollmeise summer sale started yesterday. And that's like a huge thing. Apparently like people drive from or travel from all over the country to get this sale and then buy huge amounts of Wollmeise. So last year I purposely didn't go because I thought it was going to be too crazy for me. But this morning we were up super early, so I was like, well, why don't we just jump in the car and have a look? And you guys can definitely see where this story is going to end, because of course it's going to end with a lot of yarn. So first of all, in case you're interested, because I didn't really know what to expect, their sale is held at a different building or different sort of communal center in the city where they're based. So it's not in their normal store, and they don't sell any of the normal colorways there. All the colors or skeins that they sell are sort of like one-of-a-kind skeins, because maybe the colors are a little bit different, or maybe they have knots or something with the base is a little bit different. So everything you can get there is at a reduced price, and just a little bit like different to what you can normally get from them. And like I said, I was really worried that it was going to be crazy crowded and I was going to be trampled by crazy yarn ladies. But we arrived quite early. We arrived pretty much, I think, at like 9:15, and they opened at 9. And yeah, it was quite good. At one point, I was kind of like in front of a pile of yarn, and everyone was just walking all over me, and I got way too crowded. But then it kind of all spaced out again, and it was actually quite a good atmosphere to shop. So I think I spent about maybe 45 minutes there, and then I was really happy to leave again. But it was definitely an experience that I would do it again. But you guys don't want to talk don't want to listen to me talk about the experience, do you? You want to see the yarn. So first of all, I went in with the intention of buying yarn for maybe a sweater or two. And I had this crazy idea from the beginning that I really wanted some orange yarn. I don't know why. I've never been an orange person, but I kind of had this like pumpkin orange in my mind, and I thought if I find yarn for that, that would be great. And then, so I picked up 2 skeins of this colorway, which I think this is so stunning. I was on the fence whether it is too variegated for a sweater for me, but I think it's going to be just perfect. Maybe for like another pavement sweater, like a really simple sweater where this yarn can just shine. And this I am going to alternate skeins. And beforehand I was kind of debating whether 2 skeins of yarn would be enough for me for a sweater, but I think I should be fine because I'm lucky in the way that I don't need that much yarn for sweaters for my size, and I like knitting on a loose gauge. And these are 150 gram skeins, so I got 2 of these skeins. Nobody is perfect skeins, so there is something wrong with the dialog, but I love them. And the colorway is Orient. And all the yarn I picked up for sweaters is in their pure base, which is roughly a fingering weight yarn, and it's 100% wool. So I think this is going to make a beautiful autumnal sweater. I'm really kind of thinking about doing the pavement because that is knit on a quite loose gauge, and I really liked knitting my first one. I could also do something like the flax light or something, but yeah, I really, really, really love these. I also picked up a second sweater quantity, or like when it's just 2 skeins of yarn, but I think they should be enough. I just thought that these 2 were really pretty. This is just a very solid purple. It's called Fliederbusch, but it's just a really, really pretty purple. It's the same base, and I just thought, well, a tonal or a solid purple sweater would be really, really good for my wardrobe, even though it's kind of looking very dark. It's not that dark in person. It's also a very vibrant color. And these 2 skeins, they each have 1 knot in the skein, which I think that's fine, considering I got this at a reduced price. So again, very, very happy with these, and they will be some really fun sort of like short sleeve basic sweaters, I think. And then I kind of allowed myself to go crazy and just buy 2 skeins because I really like them. And the first one that I bought, I'm really excited because I've been eyeing up this colorway for a really long time. This is, both of these are in the twin base, which is their sock yarn base, so it's an 80-20 merino and polyamide blend. And this is in the Frosch colorway, which means frog if you want to translate it. And yeah, I've just seen this colorway all over the place, and I always really liked it. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but I just think this is a really fun colorway. Sadly, I really want to pick this up, but they only had the ones with the B, which means that this is going to be a yarn that will most likely bleed. So I kind of looked all over the place to find another skein, but I didn't. So I'm going to have to wash this before I use it for anything, but it should be okay. I also kind of had a crazy idea of combining this with the purple. That would be crazy, but that would also be really, really cool. So no idea, I could make socks, I could make anything out of this. And then this last one just kind of jumped in the cart at the last second because I thought it was really pretty. And I keep saying I'm not a blue person, but then if you look at my Instagram lately, all of my projects have been blue, so maybe I'm turning into a blue person, I'm not quite sure. I just thought this would be fun. This will most likely be a pair of socks. This one is called No Whale Watching in Co. I'm assuming some part of the name is missing, and I'm not really that good with Wollmeise. They're like people who know all the colorways. I don't. But yeah, so that is the last one that I picked up. It's just a really fun, bright, vibrant colorway. Also, of course, Kai picked up some yarn because you know how much he loves his hand-knit socks. And I think he picked two really cool, good colors. So he picked up this one. This one is called Danny. And it's just a nice blue with streaks of brown. And I think it's a really pretty colorway. And then he picked another one which I really like, which is this combination of orange and brown and almost black. And these are going to be some really pretty stripy pooly socks. And this one is called Pinball Wizard. And the wizard is spelled with 3 Z's. So I'm not quite sure what that is about, but it's really pretty. So yeah, kind of went crazy with the Wollmeise, which I totally had not planned for or intended. But, oh well. Stuff happens, right? I have no shame when it comes to yarn. And I'm actually really excited about using all these yarns. I am so much in the spirit of summer stash down. I just want to cast on all the things. And you know what? I'm kind of considering just casting on a second sweater tonight because there's no knitting police, and who knows, maybe I just will. So you can probably tell this yarn is making me very, very happy, and that's generally the mindset I've been with in terms of knitting lately. Like, I'm just enjoying my knitting so much to the point where I've decided I need more knitting time. So I'm just going to sleep less. Like, I'm just going to stop going to bed at 11 and maybe go to bed at 12 or 1, and that way I'll have more knitting time because unfortunately I can't just quit my full-time job, and I do really love my full-time job as well. I just wish I had more time. So yeah, that is my knitting ramble. In terms of what else has been going on in my life, I've had a really busy but also a really fun week. On Tuesday we had a big meeting with like lots of people traveling from different parts from Germany, from a company, and also with our French CEO, which was really, really cool. I really enjoy meeting people within the company, and meeting our CEO was really interesting. And then, of course, that meant that we went out for dinner and drinks and all that later. So that was quite a late night. And then, yeah, I just had lots of like sort of things around the city, work-related things, which are exhausting. But then again, it's also really fun to get out of the normal sort of office routine. So I've been quite enjoying that, especially knowing that I have I think a relatively chill week coming up next week before I have to go travel again, so that's quite nice. But like I said, because there have been a few nights where I didn't have any time to knit, that's why I haven't made crazy progress on anything. In terms of other news, today is Saturday, like I said, so last night we went out to our favorite restaurant near Lake Starnberg. So Lake Starnberg is a beautiful lake, and it is just south of where we live. So for us it's only 20 minutes by car, so it's kind of in comparison if we were to go into the city, it would just take just as long as to drive down there. And then so we do that quite often. We go to this one place on Friday nights and just have dinner and get into the weekend spirit, so to speak. So that was quite nice, and maybe I'll include a little clip of the lake at night somewhere in this video. Besides that, we've had the perfect, relaxing, chilled out Saturday so far. Like I said, it started with yarn shopping, which is fantastic, and the weather has been really nice, but honestly, I've just been sitting inside and knitting and knitting and knitting, and I'm just really enjoying it. So I'm planning to do the same thing tomorrow and hopefully make some progress. And like I said, I want to cast on all the things. I always want to cast on all the things, but at the moment it is particularly bad. So yeah, we will see what happens with that. And I think that is pretty much it in terms of what I have to tell you. So I'm just rambling on now. So instead of keeping you guys any longer, let me just say again, thank you so much for watching and for participating in the knit-alongs and giveaways and seeing you know, what you're knitting in the Ravelry group and on Instagram. It's just bringing me so much joy. Of course, I also love it when I see you guys knitting up my patterns. That's just really, really fun. Oh yeah, one last thing that I wanted to mention very, very quickly, because it's something that seems to be happening more often lately, is a lot of people ask me to maybe get certain yarns for them because they're not in Germany, or even certain like non-yarn related products. Like I posted about my favorite chocolate and I get messages from people asking me to send them some, or anything like that. And that just kind of confuses me, especially if it's sometimes done in not the most polite way. So I felt really, really weird deciding whether to even address this. But sometimes I'm kind of dumbfounded by, I know that everyone is probably just meaning it in the nicest way, but just to clear that up, I am not going to buy yarn for someone else, and I'm not going to order something for you and then ship it to you. Like, that's just not what I do, and frankly, I just don't have the time for that. So I hope that didn't come across in a weird way. I hope you guys know what I mean, and again, this is just like not even 1% of interactions that I have. It's just the 1% that kind of irritates me. So with that, I feel like now I'm ending my podcast on a very sort of negative note. So let's just show some yarn and be happy with yarn again, because yarn is the best. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to hearing from you guys and seeing you participate in the Ravelry group. Until I talk to you again, have a great weekend, have a great week, and I hope you have a lot of fun with your knitting. Happy knitting! Bye!